am completely obsessed with Glee. One of my favorite parts is how they always work in social issues into their episodes, but they do it so naturally. Like, they're not preaching at you. They're just talking about things that really need to be talked about. And there was one thing that happened in last night's episode, Home, that I really wanted to talk about with you all. Small spoiler alert, we're gonna cut in right now to the point where Kurt gets really jealous of Finn's relationship with his dad. You are my son, and a little guy talk with some other kid isn't gonna change that. Guy talk? I'm a guy. You know what I mean. So I have two issues with this scene. First, the one Kurt brings up. So there's this idea in society that there's two genders. Males over here, and then anything over here, like in the middle, and then the female dot, like all of that is females. Which doesn't really make sense. Why is it that on this continuum of genders, this whole line where people can be anywhere in the middle, that we've got male all the way over here and everything else is female? Because in effect what that does is it makes everything that's not perfectly male, it puts it as something that's inferior. And that's bad. My second issue with this episode is around this whole idea of guy talk. So clearly there are guys like Kurt who don't like sports. And there are also women like me who love sports, as evidenced by all of my Carolina posters. So how come the guys get to own sports talk as guy talk? The other side of this is that I've also been hearing a lot about girl talk recently, which seems to be anything that has to do with talking about relationships or clothing or gossip. And I know that guys talk about those things too. And what makes it worse is that all of those things that are talking about girl talk always seem to be said with a light of, oh, that's not important, or oh, that's shallow. Why is it that guys get to talk about cool stuff like sports and it's seen as really cool, whereas women talk about clothing and gossip and all these things that are supposedly shallow? Both sexes and both genders talk about both issues, so why do they have to belong to certain categories? And we got all of this from 2 lines in Glee. So, here's what I think we do about it. First, let's drop the conversation labels. Conversation doesn't belong to any one gender, and there's no reason that we should be labeling it as such. Let's just call stuff what it is. If we're gonna talk about sports, call it sports talk. Speaking of sports, did everyone see the really cool basketball game that was against North Carolina Tar Heels and Duke Blue Devils, and then catch the subsequent Duke reference? Second, let's think about how we think about gender. What makes guys guys? What makes women women? What makes us think what we think about them? And let's think about how we can make it look like a line instead of these 2 dots on the end, or this 1 dot and everything else on the other side. And finally, let's keep talking. I want to hear in your video responses and in the comments what you all think about all of this. And I'd also love to hear any general reactions you have to Glee.